President Trump's latest tariff measures have sent shockwaves through the tech sector, forcing major corporations such as Amazon, Apple, Ford, and GM to reconsider their strategic direction. Could a corporate exodus from the United States become a reality? Amazon is reportedly exploring the possibility of relocating its global headquarters outside the United States, with the United Arab Emirates emerging as a serious contender. The primary reason is a new tax policy under President Trump, which imposes a 145% tariff on Chinese goods and additional tariffs ranging from 10% to 50% on nearly all imports, including iPhones, European automobiles, and consumer goods. Additionally, large corporations are now required to manufacture domestically to avoid penalties, creating immense pressure on firms with globally integrated supply chains. Establishing new infrastructure and production facilities within the U.S. is not a quick or simple task, especially for companies of Amazon's scale. Should Amazon proceed with relocating its headquarters, it would mark a major blow to the American tech industry and could prompt other companies to follow suit, directly impacting federal tax revenues and employment levels. Amazon Haul, the platform known for offering affordable foreign products, collapsed just days after a tax loophole was closed. Estimates indicate that inbound shipments from China fell by over 80%, leading to widespread inventory shortages and the suspension of many automated orders. Analysts warn that American consumers will begin to feel the effects by summer 2025 as import and logistics costs surge. Delivery times are also expected to lengthen due to increased inspection procedures and steeper tariffs. For American consumers accustomed to low prices and fast shipping, the impact will be tangible. Popular products could see price hikes of 15% to 30% as early as the third quarter of 2025. In a surprising turn, President Trump personally called Jeff Bezos to demand the removal of Amazon's feature displaying tax breakdowns on individual product listings. Amazon stated the feature was designed to provide pricing transparency for consumers. However, the administration argued it would damage the image of the new tax policy and accused the company of politicizing commerce. The exchange has sparked debate across the tech and e-commerce sectors over the boundary between transparency and political messaging. Restricting such information may deprive consumers of the right to understand why prices are rising, while potentially undermining trust in major commerce platforms such as Amazon. President Trump has threatened Apple with a 25% tariff if the company continues manufacturing iPhones overseas. Ford has raised prices on vehicles produced in Mexico by USD 2,000, while GM has suspended operations at several plants, consequences of new tariff policies that are now costing companies billions of dollars. Amazon, meanwhile, has launched new distribution centers in South Asia and Latin America, signaling a steady relocation of its supply chain away from the United States. As a result, America's share in the global supply chain is shrinking at an accelerated pace. The departure of major corporations from the U.S. could lead to job losses and reduced income for American workers. In addition, consumers are likely to face higher prices and increasing product shortages.
International tourism to the United States is plunging as diplomatic tensions rise and economic policies shift. Could a vacation boycott be the newest form of global protest? And is America ready for the fallout? The United States has seen a sharp 23% drop in international tourist arrivals in Q1 2025, the steepest decline since the COVID-19 pandemic. This trend is being blamed on retaliatory travel warnings and boycotts following the Trump administration's revived tariff policies, which have reignited trade tensions with China, the EU, and Canada. Key markets like China, Germany, and Canada have seen drastic reductions in travel to the U.S. This decline is hitting American workers hard, especially in major destinations like New York, Miami, and Los Angeles. hotel staff, tour guides, restaurant workers, and airport personnel are facing layoffs, pay cuts, and fewer shifts. For many, this sudden loss of international visitors means a direct loss of livelihood. States that heavily depend on tourism, such as California, Nevada, Florida, and New York, are now witnessing billion-dollar losses in revenue. Thousands of hotels, restaurants, travel agencies, and Airbnb operators have been forced to shut down or drastically reduce services. The U.S. Travel Association warns that if current policies continue, the total damage could surpass $60 billion by year's end. Millions of workers in hospitality, food service, and entertainment, many of them older adults and immigrants, are now unemployed or underemployed. With little savings and limited access to new opportunities, many have no choice but to rely on unemployment benefits or emergency assistance. Cities like Las Vegas, Orlando, and San Francisco, as well as small coastal towns, are facing skyrocketing unemployment. Local governments are scrambling to secure federal aid to keep food, housing, and temporary job programs alive. Elderly residents and seasonal workers who once depended on tourism are now unable to pay property taxes or maintain home insurance. This crisis extends far beyond tourism. Small business owners, Uber drivers, waitstaff, and even vocational school teachers are losing the economic ecosystems they relied on. In some towns, the collapse of tourism has triggered a downward spiral toward municipal bankruptcy and long-term social strain. The U.S. is increasingly viewed as less welcoming to foreigners. New tariffs, hostile rhetoric, and abrupt policy changes have pushed global event organizers to shift venues to Canada, Europe, or Asia. Experts warn that the U.S. is undermining its soft power by weakening cultural exchange and discouraging international engagement. This loss affects not only tourism, but also universities, convention centers, and export-based service businesses. Academic programs lose foreign students. International summits choose alternate hosts, and American companies miss out on global contracts and collaborations that once came naturally.
America's tech restrictions are reshaping the global chip race and fueling unexpected consequences. Could America's tech crackdown actually be building China's next tech empire? Washington's ban on advanced chip exports to China is backfiring. NVIDIA faces a $10 billion-plus revenue loss after being blocked from selling H20 chips to Chinese firms. Meanwhile, Chinese giants like Huawei are gaining market share, fueled by domestic demand and government support. U.S. restrictions on chip design software, known as EDA tools, from firms like Synopsys and Cadence, are pushing China to develop homegrown alternatives, threatening long-term U.S. dominance in chip design infrastructure. As American tech companies like NVIDIA lose international revenue, there's growing pressure to cut costs, freeze hiring, or even shift operations overseas. That means fewer high-paying tech jobs here at home. At the same time, limiting Chinese students in U.S. STEM programs worsens the already severe talent shortage, making it harder for U.S. firms to innovate, staff critical roles, and stay competitive globally. China is now building a resilient semiconductor ecosystem led by Huawei's Ascend AI chips, now central to its tech stack. With support from state investments and funds like the Shenzhen Industry Investment Group, Huawei is developing alternatives to banned U.S. components. AI-driven platforms like DeepSeek are accelerating chip development, potentially replacing U.S. software tools in just 5 to 10 years. This, along with massive government R&D, marks a historic shift. As China moves toward full tech independence, the U.S. risks losing a major customer base and critical leverage in global supply chains. This could shrink U.S. manufacturing exports, reduce tax revenues, and trigger long-term job losses in industries tied to chip production, hardware exports, and advanced electronics. That could mean higher prices or fewer choices, as companies pass on the cost of lost scale and market fragmentation. In parallel, a U.S. trade court recently overturned part of Trump-era tariffs, ruling that less than $15 billion lacked justification. However, most Section 301 tariffs, covering over $23 billion in imports, still remain. If re-elected, Trump plans to use Sections 232 and 122 to impose new tariffs on steel, aluminum, autos, and more. Bypassing Congress and escalating trade tensions, tariffs act like hidden taxes. As import duties rise, companies raise retail prices to compensate, making everything from cars to kitchen appliances more expensive. Small businesses relying on imported parts or raw materials also feel the pinch, facing tighter margins, reduced hiring, and in some cases, closures. Ultimately, these trade battles mean fewer choices and fatter bills for U.S. consumers. Right now, the trade war costs American consumers and importers over $260 billion per year in tariffs, driving up prices on electronics, groceries, and more. This revenue helps fund government spending, but the economic burden is clear. High interest rates, rising debt, and inflated prices are straining budgets. Borrowing costs have surged, making housing, education, and healthcare less affordable. Wages aren't keeping pace with inflation. For many Americans, this means living paycheck to paycheck, delaying home purchases, or even dipping into savings. Wall Street is increasingly anxious about a potential downturn. If current tariff policies persist or expand, it could trigger job losses and further squeeze middle-class households.
Less than 2 seconds to hit 100 kilometers per hour. Over 20,000 revolutions per minute in a motor that makes no sound. Tesla didn't just unveil a new motor. They're rewriting the rulebook of the electric vehicle industry. A breakthrough from carbon fiber and boundary-pushing speed. Tesla's latest motor isn't a minor upgrade. It's a full-on revolution in design. At the core is a carbon-wrapped rotor, a material that is ultralight, highly durable, and capable of withstanding extreme forces at very high speeds. In traditional electric motors, the metal core tends to expand and warp under high-speed operation and constant heat. But with Tesla's carbon wrap, the motor core stays perfectly stable, even under intense centrifugal force and thermal stress. As a result, the motor breaks past 20,000 RPM, a number even elite supercar brands never dared to target. This not only boosts vehicle speed, but also reduces wear and dramatically extends motor lifespan. Faster and more efficient than ever. The numbers aren't just impressive, they're real. Vehicles equipped with this new motor can accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in under 2 seconds. That's faster than nearly every gasoline-powered supercar on the planet. But beyond speed, the real innovation lies in how little energy it consumes to maintain peak performance. This system operates with extremely high efficiency. It converts nearly all electrical energy into movement, minimizes heat loss, and eliminates the need for bulky cooling systems. A cost advantage and mass production. Tesla's real advantage doesn't just lie in engineering, but in scaling that engineering for mass production. The new motor uses fewer rare earth materials, avoids complex mechanical assemblies, and can be produced faster and cheaper than traditional EV motors. Tesla's factories are optimized for this efficiency, from gigacasting to robotics to vertically integrated supply chains. Everything is monitored and adjusted in real time using advanced software and sensor data. While other automakers still rely on third-party suppliers for key components, Tesla controls most of its inputs, processes, and systems internally. As a result, Tesla can not only make a better motor, but also sell it at a more competitive price. While rivals struggle, Tesla moves into the next era. While legacy automakers like Ford and GM are still navigating their transition to electric vehicles, and while startups like Lucid and Rivian struggle to scale production, Tesla is preparing to bring a new technology into mass production. Tesla isn't adapting an old model. They built everything from the ground up for the electric era. Traditional brands often retrofit gasoline vehicle frames into EVs. That adds weight, reduces efficiency, and complicates production. In contrast, Tesla's cars, batteries, motors, and software are designed as a unified whole, from blueprint to showroom. Tesla is more than a car company. It's a global ecosystem. Each gigafactory isn't just a factory, it's a machine that builds machines. From high-pressure casting and non-stop robotic production to real-world data feedback from millions of miles driven, Tesla constantly improves its own manufacturing model. Complementing this is the 4680 battery cell, lighter, cheaper, higher in energy density, and perfectly compatible with the new motor. Their self-driving system, trained on data from real drivers around the world, doesn't depend on static maps. It learns and adapts to every road and situation. The future is already on the road. These breakthroughs don't just make a better car. They represent a new model of operation, one that's intelligent, efficient, and globally scalable. Tesla is expanding into new markets like India, the Middle East, and South America. While others manage massive recalls manually, Tesla solves issues with a single update. With a motor that is stronger, lighter, smarter, more affordable, and built for scale, Tesla is setting the new global standard for what the future of automotive technology should be.
America's steel sector is experiencing significant challenges due to recent tariff policies, leading to job losses and increased costs. How are these developments affecting the daily lives of American workers and consumers? The U.S. steel industry is encountering financial setbacks, with United States Steel Corporation reporting a net loss of $116 million in the first quarter of 2025, a reversal from a $171 million profit in the same period last year. This downturn is attributed to increased tariffs on steel imports, which have raised production costs and reduced competitiveness. Recent developments have led to significant job losses in the U.S. steel industry, with over 1,200 layoffs at Cleveland-Cliffs facilities in Michigan and Minnesota, and a workforce reduction of approximately 900 employees at Granite City Works in Illinois. These figures underscore the broader challenges facing steelworkers and related sectors amid shifting trade policies. The implementation of higher tariffs on imported steel has resulted in a cost spiral for American manufacturers. Companies face the dilemma of absorbing increased costs, raising prices, or reducing their workforce to maintain profitability. Households are now paying more for everyday goods, including cars, washing machines, and even basic home repairs. For middle-class families already battling inflation, these added costs are particularly painful. Older Americans planning home renovations or car replacements are finding themselves postponing purchases, further slowing demand. In some areas, price hikes of 10 to 15% have been recorded for key goods tied to steel inputs, putting added strain on fixed-income retirees and working families alike. Major automotive manufacturers like General Motors and Ford are scaling back production and delaying new model releases in response to increased steel costs. Ford has temporarily halted operations at certain facilities, and Harley-Davidson is considering relocating some production overseas to mitigate expenses. These corporate decisions have real consequences for workers on the ground. Thousands of auto employees, many in the Midwest and South, face furloughs or job uncertainty. With fewer vehicles rolling off the lines, car dealerships are reporting shortages, pushing prices higher. This directly affects families needing affordable transportation, a particular concern in rural and suburban areas where public transit is limited. The broader economic impact of these tariffs includes a projected decrease in GDP growth. effects of rising tariffs. This slowdown is particularly hard on older workers, who are often the first to be cut during industrial restructuring. As job opportunities contract and wage growth stagnates, many households are dipping into savings or delaying retirement. The prospect of long-term unemployment is rising in industrial towns, while younger generations may be discouraged from pursuing careers in manufacturing altogether. For a country that once built its middle class on factory floors, the current trajectory is raising fundamental economic questions.